Hi, everybody. So I just want to let you know that I know that looks very scary, but there is a method to my madness. Um, I'm going to talk a lot about light source today. Quick video on the do's and don'ts of how you highlight. Oops, sorry, got a little blurry there. The arrows that I'm going to make, first of all, the light source I'm using is the sun, or it could be a light bulb or whatever. This is my mental image when I actually start to do a new piece. And the arrows I'm making is where I'm pointing out where you put the light reflection and where you don't put the light reflection. So you'll see that I put the arrows curved around, and I'll write the word no if it's not supposed to land there where there is no light actually touching, and the word yes if it actually has a reflection. Sometimes the reflection is really bright and sometimes it's just minimal, but the light will reflect on these areas. Now I'm going in with a brighter color so that you can see it easier. I know it looks a little scary, but I think it's going to be super effective when it's all said and done. There's spots that you'll see when I actually go in with the pencil and start to add in my color. You'll see that there are spots that are kind of tricky where it is a little bit of light, but there is shadowing as well. Like across the eyebrow or the brow bone, there is light reflected there because it protrudes from the face, such as the tip of the nose, such as the top of the lips, such as the inside of the bottom lip, such as the eyelids and the top underneath the eyebrow reflects light as well. It gets light when the sun hits it or a light bulb hits it or wherever. Of course, it differs depending on where your light source is, but that is the case in this scenario. Now I'm going in with a pencil, and anytime there is an indent, like on either side of the nose where the eyes indent in, there will be some shadow. On the right side of the image where the sun would actually be stronger, it's a smaller amount of shadow, but there is still a shadow and some where the indent is. On the left side of the nose where the sun wouldn't be reflecting as strongly, basically light does not wrap around and bend. It hits the source and stops. So it won't keep going. So of course, as you can see, the way I'm blending with my stump, it is much darker and there's much more of it. On the right side, there is still shadow, but it's not as strong. And on the nose, the left side, of course, down the bridge, on the tip of the nose, under the nose, with the nostrils, there is some shadow, but not as much. The lips, especially when it's a curved surface, you want to make sure when you're adding the shadow lines that you try to follow the curve of whatever surface that you're coloring or filling in at that time. The top lip is always going to be darker than the bottom lip. Oops, look at that. I disappeared, and I'm back. The top of the lip is always going to be darker because it comes out, yes, but it also overlaps the bottom lip a little bit. It's further out than the bottom lip. But the very tip of the lip that's right underneath the nostril, that will have a little bit of a highlight, but the lip itself, the top lip, will always be darker than the bottom. There will be some shadow that lands in between the lips because if the mouth is closed or if the lips are touching, there's always a cast shadow. Just always remember that when two items overlap each other, there's always going to be shadow. Always, 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 unless, of course, there is a glaring light straight directly on it. And even in that case, in some scenarios, there is a tiny bit of shadow. It's not going to be as strong, but it's definitely there. You'll see, I love to use my blending stump, obviously. I think I talked about in my last video. It's my favorite tool. But you'll see that I'm adding a little bit of darker. I'm going with my pencil to make it a little bit darker. Where the two areas meet, two items, like in this case that was the nostrils, where they meet, that will always be darker just in the crevice. And then it fans out a little bit, fades out a tiny bit. Again, here on the left side of the nose, you'll see that I'm adding more dark and I'm highlighting inside the actual eyelid, leaving the center of the eyelid lighter because that protrudes because it hits the ball of the eye, which will reflect more light. So inside in the corners of the eye and also where it dips down into the back of the eye or the edge of the eye, the outside of the eye, it will cast a shadow as well because those both go in on both sides. Where it goes up, where it hits the eyeball, where it sits over the eyeball, it will have a little bit of reflection. This obviously is going to take a little time to practice. I suggest practice, but it's fun. I love doing this. Shading on any of my pieces is my favorite part to do. I'm at the pupil right now. The pupil is always darkest. Now I'm using a pencil. It's a number 5 mechanical pencil lead. It's not super dark, which is why I don't use it very much. My favorite is the number 3, 0.3 lead. But I wanted you guys to be able to see it. It's a thicker pencil. It's not as dark as the 3, but it's a thicker pencil, so I wanted you to be able to see the lines better. But definitely the pupil's darker. If I were using a different pencil, I would use a really, really, really dark black lead for the pupils and the eyeliner or the eyelash line, because I want those to stand out the most in the eye area. And if you look at anybody's eye, you'll notice that around the edges of the actual cornea, the color part of the eye, you'll see that it's darker. It's always darker, and then it's softer on the inside. And you can get super detailed here by adding the lines that are inside the eye. I'm obviously going for a whimsical look, but so it's not as detailed. We'll get into the detail, the realism later down the line, but right now I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what it is to do shading. And you'll notice that I'm adding the shadowing. Oop, I went blurry there. That I'm adding the shadowing on the left side of the face, which is where the light would not be hitting. Under the eye, it's always darker. So you notice it's always darker on the left side because that's where my light source is. My light source is off to the right, so my left side is going to be dark. Still have some pops of light in that area, but definitely have more shadow on that side. Here I'm going back into the eye. Eyes are my favorite part of the face. Raise your hand if that's your favorite part of the face. I love doing the eyes. And then I'm adding like the little bulge that goes under the eye a tiny bit, just to kind of portray that there is an actual circular object within the eye socket. Going ahead and adding a little bit more shadow on the right side, not too much. I'm not heavy-handed on that side. I'm just adding it up because there will be some shadow there because it sinks in. It goes in, it tucks in next to each side of the nose bridge. Going ahead and adding some more shadow in the right eye. Back into the left eye. I decided to add a little bit of the lines, not a lot. I'm going to erase and add just a little bit of a highlight. Again, it's coming from the right side, so the pupil, or actually the iris of itself, will be a little bit lighter on the right side of each of the irises. Defining the shadow in the nose. And I'm back to the mouth, it looks like. And I've disappeared again. Come back. Come back. I've clearly gotten into what I'm doing. I'm back up to the eye. And now up again, she has bangs, so there's always going to be a shadow where the hair meets the forehead a tiny bit. Again, the left side is going to be darker because the light source is coming from the right side. The shadow will be on the light side of the the left side of the forehead, the left side of the cheek. You can go in and if you want, add a little cheekbone, tiny bit to just imply that there is a little bit of a curvature when she's smiling. And under the lip, always under the lip, because again, it protrudes out from the chin. There's always going to be a shadow cast under the lip. Closest up to the under the lip will be the darkest always. I've added a little too much, so I'm going to go erase some. It doesn't need to be too much. It kind of looks like a little goatee on a woman. It's kind of funny. But it's always darkest up underneath the lip itself. And then also the top lip will cast a shadow on the bottom lip. A little bit right where the lips meet in the center, especially if the mouth is open, you'll see a little bit of a shadow there. Here I'm showing you that what I said earlier about the curve of the line. You want to always make sure that your lines kind of follow the shape that you're shading. It gives it more dimension. It gives it more of a 3D look as opposed to a flat, just on paper surface look, a 2D look. I'm just going in and adding a little. It's kind of crazy seeing all these yeses and nos all over the face. If people didn't know what we were talking about, they would think that I had a little bit of a problem. It was a little crazy. I always forget the name of that, what the part is under the nose. If anybody knows, please write it in the comments. Going back in, just touching up a little bit here and there. I think at this point, I'm about to add the neck. Yep, there we go. I'm about to add the neck. The neck, the same thing applies. Light source is up in the upper right-hand corner. So the farthest side will have no shadow. Light source right there, no shadow. It will be dark, or sorry, will have shadow. Be dark on this side. On the left side, I'll get up close again in a second, and you'll see I've written no, 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 and no. The darkest part will be away from the light source. Again, I'm using my number 5. I actually used my number 5 a lot when I first started. I liked the bold line until I discovered the 0.3. And the 0.3, especially when it comes to the hair, is perfection when it comes to the hair because it gives you those really, really fine details. All those hairlines. Number 5 is awesome too. It works really great. I just am able to do a lot more detail with the number 3. So I'm kind of obsessed with the number 3. But you see, I add most of the dark is on the left side of the neck, and there will be a bit of dark under the chin directly, darkest part, because it actually protrudes from the neck, so it will cast a little bit of a shadow, but it's not going to be as extreme. Again, it depends on where your light source is. If you were standing on a playground and the light source was right above you, you would have very little shadow. But the farther the sun goes, all of a sudden, if it goes far to the right, all of a sudden you have this incredibly long shadow that's off to the left, and vice versa. Remember when you were a little kid and you used to walk and try to catch your shadow? I remember that. And here I'm taking my Posca white pen and I'm adding highlights to the lip and to the pupil. Now it's not sticking very well because it's on graphite. If it was on paint, it would be golden, but because it's on graphite and it's just paper, it's kind of absorbing. But I throw in a little white dot in each pupil and kind of little like a reflection line to kind of give it a water shimmer. This is just quick. There's so many ways to do this. This is just one of the ways I do it. And then remember what I said earlier, that at the top of the lip, there is a highlight. And then also on the bottom of the lip, there's a reflection line. A reflection, because it's moist, a little bit of moist. And then I always dab it a tiny bit with my finger so it's not such stark white. And there's the light source. Bright pink, one of my favorite colors. So I hope this wasn't too crazy for you. I hope it made sense. I didn't go too fast forward with it. I wanted you guys to be able to catch up and see what I was talking about. It's a quick tutorial. I will, of course, will do more tutorials about this. A lot of people have asked about the light source. So there you go. Thank you.